Did you know that your sewing pattern size is not the same number as the clothes you buy at the store? Yep, that's right. You cannot make any kind of correlation between the two because sewing pattern sizes use completely different models and a different system to rate their sizes. So do not use the clothing size you buy at the store to pick your sewing pattern size. Instead, we're going to look at the back of the sewing pattern to figure out your exact size. And if the back of this envelope feels a little bit confusing, don't worry, we're gonna walk through this step by step inside of this video. So that way, by the end, you'll know how to find your perfect sewing pattern size. Hi, my name's Abby, and I help absolute beginners just like you start making clothes they love. So if you would like more information on how to get started on making your own clothes, then be sure to like and subscribe below, because all of my videos are here to help you do this as quickly while having as much fun as possible. Okay, so let's get into this sewing pattern size. The first thing we need to talk about is the sewing pattern itself. The first thing we notice when we look at a sewing pattern is we see the front. It has this big picture of what it is we're going to make. This is the point when you get excited and you're like, oh yes, I'm gonna make this awesome dress, pant, shirt, whatever it is. And what we will also notice is that most patterns have multiple things we can make inside of one pattern. So we can see here on this pattern that we can make a long sleeve dress, a short sleeve dress, and a jumpsuit. Once we've decided what it is we want to make, then we can flip the pattern over, the pattern envelope over, and we can look at the back. Now, this is where all the good stuff is, but if you're brand new, this might feel a little bit overwhelming. So let's just walk through this really quick so you kind of feel a little bit more comfortable. So on the back, we're going to find the fabric recommendations, the notions, the size charts, fabric requirements, and finished garment measurements. Now that last one is optional. I don't see it on all patterns, but let's dive a little bit more into each one so you actually know what this is. So the type of fabric or recommended fabrics. Every sewing pattern is going to give you a suggested type of fabric to use. Yes, that's right. You don't have to just go in this blindly guessing which fabric to use. The pattern is going to give you suggestions, and it's a really good idea to follow these if you can, because picking the right fabric means that your project is going to fit correctly. If you use a fabric that is not good for this project, it might give you a very strange fit and it might not look very nice. So try to use these recommendations. They're going to help you get in a good zone of picking the right kind of fabric. Notions. Notions is one of those fancy sewing vocab words that just means all the other things we need to make a project. So this is going to include things like zippers, buttons, thread, elastic, anything like this. So anything you need to make your project that isn't fabric. So those are the big things that we look at on the back of the envelope. But now let's really get into how to find your sewing pattern size. The first thing we have to do to find your size is actually take your measurements. Because for sewing patterns, we actually don't have any kind of system. What we do is we measure our actual bodies and then use that to figure out which size is closest to match us. So to measure, we are going to measure the bust, which is around the chest, the waist, and our full hip, which is the largest part around your booty. Now, if you need help with taking measurements, I have a whole other video on that. Check it out here. But once you have taken your measurements, you're going to want to write them down and keep them with you anytime you want to start a new project. And you'll see why that's really important in the next step. So now that we've taken our measurements, we're going to actually look at this chart on the back of the pattern envelope. And what we're going to see is here along the left side, we have the word bust, waist, and full hip. So what we're going to do is draw a line from the bust straight across until we get to our measured number. Okay, so once you get there, circle that number or write it down, however you can keep track of this. Then you'll do the same thing for your waist measurement and the same thing again for your full hip measurement. If you look at the body measurements chart and you don't see your exact number, go up to the next nearest number. Okay, if we go down, this might end up being too small for us and we don't want that. So again, if you don't see your exact number, go up to the next nearest size. So if we look at the body measurements chart for my measurements, my bust is 37.5 inches and the closest I'm seeing here is 38. So I'm going to go up to the size 16. My waist measurement is 31.5. So I'm going to also go up to that size 18. Oh, I'm going to go to size 18 for this one. And for my hips, I'm 42.5. So I'll go up to a size 20. Okay. So you can see I am not all in the same column. I'm in different numbers. Now, this is a point when a lot of people start getting worried because it's very common for people to fall into multiple sizes. So as you can see here, I am in multiple sizes and there's nothing wrong with this, okay? The reason this happens is because the company that made the pattern had to pick somebody to be the model. So they picked some random person with their body, they measured them and they said, okay, this is a size 10. Then to make the size 8, they just took that same measurements, all the same, and they just subtracted ½ an inch from every measurement, from the bust, the waist, and the hips, and called that a size 8. Subtracted another ½ inch to get a size 6, another ½ inch for a size 4, or they added that ½ inch to get bigger sizes. So, unless you have the exact same proportions as the model that the pattern company picked, you're going to be in multiple sizes. That doesn't mean anything bad. It just means that you don't match the model, which is okay. But if you are in multiple sizes, how do you pick the right one? Like which one of these is your correct sewing pattern size? And to answer that, we need to talk about the next thing on our list. And that is, what is it that you're making? Okay, if you are making a t-shirt, then we don't really care what your full hip measurement is. And vice versa, if you're making a pair of pants, we're not really concerned what your bust measurement is. All sewing patterns are going to always have all three measurements, bust, waist, and full hip, because it's a stock standard template they use for all patterns. But we, as we're sewing and trying to find our perfect pattern size, need to think about this a little bit and realize, okay, I'm in 3 different sizes, but I'm making pants. So I'm not worried about my waist, my bust measurement. I just need to worry about my waist and my full hip. To make this really easy, we're going to go through the most common projects you'll be making and which measurement you should be the most concerned about. So when it comes to pants, we're going to be looking at that full hip measurement, okay? If the pants can fit around your booty, then we can kind of adjust and wiggle and get the waist to work for you. And the same is true for tight-fitting skirts. So if you like A-line skirts or skirts that kind of skim your body and stay very, very close, again, that full hip measurement is going to be the one we want to focus on. But if we move over to really flowy, loose, full circle skirts, then we're going to have a lot of fabric around the booty. So we instead, for this kind of project, we're going to focus more on the waist measurement. We want to make sure that it's going to hug us and sit where we want it to. And when we look at tops, and this is a massive range, but when we look at tops, we're going to want to focus on that bust measurement. We want to make sure everything fits around our chest and our torso. Now, when we move into dresses, things get a little bit more complicated because we need to focus on both the bust and the full hip. which is why for beginners, if this is your first or first 5 projects, I recommend picking a loose fit project. This is going to help you in 2 ways. First, it's going to mean that if you don't take your measurements exactly right, it's going to be totally okay because the project is loose. And also, when you pick your pattern size, if you don't pick this exactly right, if you pick one size too big or one size too small, if the project is loose fit, it's not going to make a big difference. So let's make our lives easy and make sure we're picking these loose fit projects. And on the topic of dresses, if you're a beginner and you're wanting to make a dress, I suggest finding a project that has a top that you like and has a loose skirt. Because if the skirt of the dress is loose, we go back to loose skirts where we're not worried about the full hip measurement and we can just focus on the bust. Okay? So again, as beginners, it's going to make our lives so much easier to pick things that are loose fit. Now, a note here. Sewing patterns are always going to need a little bit of adjustment because they are made to fit everybody. They're a base, they're a starting point. So if after watching this video, you're like, but like, is this my exact size? It's perfect. It's going to fit me exactly when I make it. Probably not exactly, but you're going to be really, really close and it's going to give you a great starting point. Now, something that beginners don't like to hear very much, but I want to be honest with you because I want you to truly start making clothes you love and I don't want you to start this and then be like, why isn't this working? This is a secret that a lot of people don't talk about, especially with beginners. But the truth is that whenever you work with a brand new sewing pattern, it is a really good idea to make a practice project. This is typically called a toile. And my recommendation is to just go to your local thrift store and buy secondhand bed sheets. Okay? They're a large amount of fabric and you can just cut your pattern out in whatever size you think is really close and try it on just to make sure everything's right before you actually cut out your nice fashion fabric that you probably paid a bit of money for and you don't want to just waste it. Now, I know that's not the most fun thing to hear, but I'm going to tell you 2 fun things that I actually really enjoy about doing toiles. One is it takes the stress out of the project. I don't have to worry about, is it exactly right? What if I waste the fabric? I don't want to cut into it because I don't want to ruin it. If I just have some ugly old bed sheet, I can just cut out the pieces, don't worry too much, throw them together and then go, oh, this doesn't fit. I'm going to adjust this, change that. And I can just chop and cut and do what I want until I love the way that it looks. And then, because I've already gone through the process once before, when I go back through to work with my fashion fabric, the pretty stuff that we love to look at, the whole project is easier, faster, and I feel more confident. I'm not as worried about messing the project up because I've already done it once before. So try to think about this in a positive, exciting way because truly, I think that where a lot of people get stuck is they think that they're going to pick up a pattern, cut out a pattern size, throw it on, it's going to be done, it's going to be perfect. And I have been sewing for 15 plus years and every single pattern that I pick up, I always need to adjust just a little bit here and there. And the more you do this, the easier the adjustments will get. But it's very rare for a pattern to work perfectly right out of the envelope. Okay? So I hope that this has helped you. And if you would like to go through an entire sewing pattern with me, because I know this can be a bit overwhelming, it's a lot, your first pattern. I actually have a class that walks through an entire sewing pattern from beginning to end, step by step, showing you how to pick the perfect pattern size, checking in with you. There's a live support, so in case you have questions or get stuck, you can always talk to me. And yeah, we walk through an entire pattern from beginning to end. And by the end of the project, you will actually be wearing the project. So if that would help you out, check it out down below. It's one of my favorite classes. I absolutely love working with beginners. And if you decide to go this on your own, I would love to know if you have any other questions I can answer for you down below. Whatever you decide to make or sew next, good luck and happy sewing.